Hi, my name is Lauren Welte, and I am a PhD candidate at Queen's University. I work with a lot of X-ray, and so we need to use a lot of X-ray or some X-ray tracking software to be able to find the 3D positions of the various bones that we're tracking. So I'm going to do a slight follow-up to Bardi's video and show how I use the multi-bone tracking and how our visualization of these bones works. And so this will just give an overview of my workflow. So I'll track the calcaneus first and bring it roughly into the frame of view, and then zoom in and center, and then I bring it to the appropriate frame of our trial. In this case, it's a running trial, so I wait till the bone is in view of both views, so the calcaneus is there and there, and then I move the pivot point so that it's primarily in the centroid of the bone, and then rotate the pivot so that I only have 2 dimensions in one view. And then I'll translate it to fit approximately the center of the calcaneus. And as you can see in the second view, it's not close, so I use the other third degree of freedom. So here I have green, blue, and I use my third degree of freedom here to move it in the other plane. Then I'll rotate it in one view so that it's roughly in line. Approximately there. And here, this one's obviously not in the right spot, so I can rotate it about there to get it in its initial position. I readjust the pivot as I need to be able to make it fine adjustments. And the green one is now my third dimension, or third degree of freedom. Rotating there, and there, and then that's roughly good enough for an initial guess most of the time, so I'll save that. And then I'll track that frame. So the tracking is done, and it looks pretty reasonable. Usually I'm getting normalized cross correlations of around 1 point, just above 1. So that's in a decent range there, so we'll go with that. And then I would normally look at another frame, so I'm usually doing them in multiples of 4, just so it's easier to track the same bones across, or same frames across bones. And so I might track something that's pretty far along the trial, perhaps frame 140 there, and so I would then roughly track this bone in this frame. And the first frame is always the hardest to track because it's going from CT space, which is very differently aligned. And I'll use the H key to try and see what it looks like behind. And that looks reasonable enough for an initial guess, so I'll save that. Alright, so visually verify it. Seems reasonable. And so I would probably track all the way to the end of the frame, but just for an example, I would then bisect this somewhere in the middle. And then it's pretty, I might save a frame there, so I'll probably do frame 124, move that roughly into the right spot, save it, track it. So I don't think this optimization is great. You can see the line doesn't line up here, so I tend to just move it around a little bit and try and get a better initial guess. Save that. Track it again. So it's still converging to a non-optimal solution here. So I might just leave it a little at my initial guess for the moment. And then I would save the tracking. And then, as you can see, it does venture out from in between the frames there, but that's okay for the moment because I'm just looking at the keyframes to see how they're aligned because I'm using the multi-bone tracking. So I'll use the Tailless now and bring that closer. And what I'll actually do is copy the Calcaneus position and move it into the Tailless position. And because these are relatively close in the CT scan, they actually look, the alignment is not too bad. So I might just adjust it slightly. There. Resave it and then track that one. So that's done there. The lines are pretty good. I'll hide it. Verify that everything's in line. All the anatomical features. So it's looking pretty good. I'll do the same for the other frames. So we did frame 140. So I'll copy that from the Calcaneus as well. You can see it doesn't fit quite as well because it wasn't as close to the positioning in the CT scan. So we'll adjust that to get a better initial guess. And save that. Track the frame. Alright, so that's looking somewhat reasonable. And then we'll go to the other frame that we tracked. This is 124, and then I'll verify all three of those keyframes before I continue to make sure that they look reasonable in space, because everything's being interpolated off of them. So rotate that so we have 2 degrees of freedom. That's somewhat decent. Save that. Track it. So unfortunately the optimizer didn't find the solution that time. So undo it and retrack it to initial guess. And I might actually just leave this one as an example of a poorly tracked one, so you can see how our visualizer would show that. So we'll save that as a poorly tracked. So this is how I would animate the trial. I would run it from our custom code. So I have to select all of their file directories. And I only have to do this the first time. After this, I can just run the code from the end. So we're doing the Calcaneus and the Tailless to visualize. And so it's saved in the file. So I'll open that, and that will open our wrist visualizer app, which is how we visualize things. So here's the first frame that we tracked. This is frame 120. And so, or sorry, frame 108, I believe. And so you can see the joint spacing is reasonable. That's usually what I'm looking at, just to see that they're not impinging on each other and they look basically biologically feasible. So then if we look at the next frame that we tracked, which is 8 frames ahead, you can see that this is the one that was poorly tracked. So it's basically impinging here. You can see that the bone surfaces are in contact there, which is not possible as there's joint space there. So I would retract this in Autoscoper. There's quite a lot of space there. Might be real, but probably not based on how poorly we tracked that frame. And then the last one, I would check that as well. So that's looking possible. There might be a little bit of joint spacing there. I might run the optimizer again just to make sure it's in a good spot. I would probably give it a little bit of a different initial guess and then try to verify. So I would verify 3 or 4 keyframes that are pretty far apart in the trial, and then once I had done that, once that's all verified and okay, I would then go in between and bisect the frames again. So I would go in between and make sure that all those frames were okay before I exported them, and then I would export them with a spline so that I could see the interpolated results. As you can see, this frame still needs to be tracked, so it would still be in the process of tracking. But this was that frame where the bones were impinging, so you can see that they're not lined up there. It's kind of missing the line here, so it's clearly not a good guess. And yeah, so thank you very much for listening, and that's all.